Biden's American Rescue Plan Act, what he did was lower the threshold for reporting sales to the IRS from $10,000 all the way down to $600 in an effort to do what? Making sure the top 1% can't evade $160 billion a year in taxes. That's right. The billionaires who are driving Uber and Lyft and doing some DoorDash runs and stuff like that. You billionaires who drive on the side and deliver people and goods and food and all that stuff, you're the people that he's coming after. So the little guy's getting screwed again. And it's a bureaucratic nightmare because no one's sure how we're at this point now, because it's so vague, how this is going to affect your side hustle and those who make money through the gig economy. You know, you billionaires. Joining me on the show again is Demian Brady. He's the Vice President of Research for the National Taxpayers Union Foundation. Just keep an eye on the taxes here. It's always about the taxes. Demian, welcome back. How you been?
I've been doing pretty good. Thanks for having me back on.
Good. I bet it's a shock to many listening who maybe drive Uber or Lyft or deliver stuff with DoorDash, food and the like, that they're billionaires.
That's right. Yeah. I promise there's a big underreporting among rich people, but you have proposals like this, which impose outsized burdens on just ordinary everyday taxpayers. And it's not just people who are earning income through Uber and other services like that are liable for their income taxes, but this could end up causing a lot of people to over-report the income that they earn if they're selling through platforms like eBay or Amazon, or if you go to restaurants with your family and then use Venmo to pay back for the bill. All that sort of information is going to get captured on this 1099-K form and sent to the IRS. And a lot of taxpayers are in for a surprise if this provision is not reformed by tax season.
Yeah, and it's pretty basic tax policy, too. This is like 101 level. So, and if you don't follow this stuff, I get it, because it's overly complicated. We spend over 2 billion hours in compliance collectively as Americans on our stupid taxes, and it shouldn't be that hard. But you have your typical W-2 worker, which is the staid, true, tired formula where your employer pays you money. They take the taxes out. It's covered by them, as well as, let's face it, too, there's some other costs in there, too, that the employer gets. But so that's a W-2 world that we most live in. Then there's a 1099 world, or the 1099-K in this case, with these side hustles where, guess what? You're not paying. You're the one who has to pay all that stuff. So your employer isn't kicking in its federal and state and local taxes. They're not paying into Social Security and Medicare. And the wrinkle there is, if you're an independent contractor, you're on the hook for both halves of the federal payroll taxes in both Social Security and Medicare, while W-2 workers have it taken out automatically. So there's the problem. And for those who drive Uber, Lyft, and are involved in the gig economy, among other things, this is going to be a wake-up call coming later this year, because even the IRS is confused about this, right?
Yeah, so this was supposed to have kicked into effect last tax season. There was bipartisan effort in Congress to do something about it, but they couldn't get their act together in time. So in December, we got a gift from the IRS because they decided, because of all the complexity and confusion and questions about this looming over taxpayers, they delayed implementation for a full year. So now we're just 6 months away from the end of the year, less than that, and all of those concerns are still in place. The IRS has put out guidance on this, but if you read through it, it's very convoluted. A lot more people are going to have to go out and get a tax advisor to try to make sense of this. And if you sold a desk for a loss, I mean, you can sell it and easily meet the threshold, and it'll be for a loss. Yeah. You might not be aware of that and end up over-reporting the taxes. This needs to be fixed because of all the problems it's going to cause. And the IRS had also delayed it because they were having concerns about implementing that, and that's still the case now too.
Well, I wonder how many people who do, and there's millions of people who are involved in the gig economy. It's a wonderful thing, but they have no idea what they're about to get hammered with. I think that's the scary part about this whole thing.
Yeah, taxpayers are unprepared. The IRS is unprepared. They have put out some projections of how many additional 1099-K forms they expect to get, and they only count on 1 to 2 million extra 1099-Ks being reported next year. But we think that they're missing that by a long shot, because, I mean, a taxpayer could end up getting multiple 1099-Ks if you use Venmo, if you use eBay, you sell through Amazon. There's lots of on all kinds of apps and channels that could expose people to this tax liability.
Yeah, it's the American Rescue Plan Act, and Biden is throwing a cement life preserver to Americans out there engaged in the gig economy. So, yeah, thanks for the help, Uncle Joe. Appreciate that. I think overall, though, and you agree with this, Demian, is the overall fact. The fact of this is the real problem, the core problem, drilling down, is the fact that our tax code system is outdated and it's a dinosaur. And the reason why it's a dinosaur is because dinosaurs are in charge of Congress. I would have to say that most members of the Senate and most members of the House of Representatives, especially the entrenched members, have no idea what the hell is going on in the real world, simply because they're old, they're insulated because they're inside the Beltway, and they're out of touch. And this policy reflects that. Is that, man, I'm not, I wonder how many of you ask them how an app works or how you order a ride or things like that. They have no clue whatsoever because they're so out of touch. And it has to do with age, and it also has to do with the imperial nature of our government right now. That's really the core problem here is they're still in a W-2 world. We're in a 1099 world.
It is good to get some new voices and new experiences of members of Congress more familiar with the business world and with the everyday world and the inflation hassles that taxpayers and people face whenever they go shopping. Went to the grocery store last night. I mean, you hear inflation is down from what it was, but you're still ending up paying a lot more than you did a couple of years ago. It's
incredible. I mean, it really is incredible. The way it used to be is that we had the $220,000 threshold is what the way things used to work. It seemed to work fine. What was that? And it went away, but should it come back?
Yeah, that amount, if you had a combination of 200 transactions and exceeding $20,000, that would result in a 1099-K getting reported. And that provided a safe harbor for people who use eBay as a virtual garage sale. And so that way they're not imposed on all these ridiculous paper burdens. And so now anytime you sell something or do a transaction, you're going to have to take a detailed note and operate your life like it's a small business.
Right. And you're not prepared to do that. You just want to make a little money in addition to your main job.
Right, and especially if you're selling something that you bought decades ago and you're selling it clearly for a loss, if you don't have a record of that, you might be afraid of getting hit down from the IRS. You're going to end up over-reporting your income taxes.
And you think about it, you're driving Uber, you're driving Lyft, you're delivering for DoorDash or Uber Eats, you're on eBay, you're on Etsy, Marketplace, wherever it is that you're trying to make a little extra money to. That makes sense to me. The $20,000 200 transaction threshold. Anything above that, you're getting into kind of a real business territory. But I don't know what the numbers are. Maybe the number of people who make below that threshold that never have to report, and rightly so. Now we're going to go down to $600 from $10,000. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And now you've got a bunch of people who are living hand to mouth. It's just going to make things worse for them.
Yeah, if you sell an old desk, if you just finished up college and you're selling your textbooks, you could easily get into this threshold and then get spooked and surprised once the 1099-K form shows up and you get a notification that the IRS got that information too. Then when you do, you think you're liable for this, and you might not be.
Demian Brady is the Vice President of Research for the National Taxpayers Union Foundation. We're talking about Biden's American Rescue Plan Act, which is going after the big guy. So the top 1% make sure they pay their fair share, so they can't evade $150 billion in taxes a year that they're skipping out on. And how you do that, of course, in going after billionaires, is going after people who sell stuff on eBay for more than $600. Because that's where the real money is right there. So the little guy's getting screwed in the name of the big guy. And the real problem, of course, is the fact that our tax system sucks. It's overly complex. No one knows what's happening. And Washington is woefully out of touch with the new economy. They're still in the W-2 economy when we're in the independent contractor 1099 economy. And they don't even know how it works. And I think the ultimate insult to this, too, Demian, is what does this all have to do? The American Rescue Plan Act, which, of course, is about the COVID-19 pandemic. What is people driving for Uber and Lyft and delivering stuff? What does that got to do with the COVID-19 pandemic, which is now 3 years in the rearview mirror?
Yeah, and that the American Rescue Plan Act provided 1.8 or 1.9 trillion dollars in deficit spending. So it was one component to claw back, get some offsets in there in that original bill. And it's one of those things. We'll write it in law and worry about it later, because obviously there's lots of problems with this. We have to enact it to see how it works. To pair what Speaker Pelosi said a couple years ago.
I love that. Yeah, we got to pass this to see how the thing works, and then we'll realize we're wrong. We'll blame the other party and point the finger and go, "It was this guy, it wasn't me." So if you're a freelancer, immigrants, college students, the working poor, anyone who does this at all, I look at other states too, because it's you look at New York, for example, or you may be. It's a whole different layer there too. I think the biggest confusion about this, and we haven't gotten into this yet, Demian Brady, is that it's just confusing if you're on more than one platform. I know people, maybe you know people that drive for Uber, but they also are on eBay and Etsy. They're doing all these other things, and each company themselves. Now, Uber, for example, they issue the 1099-Ks to employees, but Lyft does the opposite. They're still under the 200 transaction, $200,000 threshold. And so even amongst gig platforms, there's still different ways of accounting. It's got to be a nightmare if you're involved heavily, and that's how you make your main income, is working multiple jobs like this.
Yeah, and so the good point, though, is there are members of Congress trying to fix this. The members of both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have introduced legislation. Some of these bills would go back to the old threshold. Some would enact a slightly lower threshold. But it's heartening that there is bipartisan support to fix this and prevent this burden being imposed, and burdens of complexity and confusion coming down on taxpayers next year.
Well, we'll see if it does come down. Do you think there's a chance that they just go back to the way it was with the old threshold until they can sort this out, or is it simply too far gone?
I think there's a good chance we could get something through Congress, and given the statements from the commissioner of the IRS about the administrative problems implementing this, I wouldn't be surprised if they take action too. But it would be best if we get a legislative fix so we can restore the safe harbor for taxpayers.
Demian Brady, the Vice President of Research, National Taxpayers Union Foundation. Thanks for joining the show this morning. Appreciate the insight.
Thank you for having me on, sir.
All right, be well.